Hello and welcome. I am Light, and this is my podcast. We have something a little different going on today. Um, Jory and I are going to be talking about famous ghost stories, some of which you might not have heard about, but they're famous locally to where they are. However, Jory is being a little held up. And so in the meantime, I have Rob here with me. Hello, Rob.
Hi guys, you've got me. Sorry.
If you have not already, please go ahead and give this a thumbs up. And so what Rob and I are going to do is we're going to talk about the 31 days of Halloween and how it's been going so far. Before that starts, I want to say that I have merchandise up if you guys want to go. It's going to be in the description of this video. I don't know if Josh Johnson has been given the links from Maya yet. So if not, I put the links to that and Patreon in the description. So if you are interested in that. And I want to say that one of the shirts in the merchandise, you can see the back of the shirt and it says Exit Light. For some reason, no matter what editing I do, it won't show the front of the shirt. And the front of the shirt says, I go bump in the night. And I like it. It's super cute. I got them in sweatshirts, hoodies, T-shirts. We got phone cases and socks, all kinds of stuff. If you guys are interested to go look, I'm going to be adding mugs and stickers and a bunch of different stuff. And I'm excited about it. I want to see us walking around with our Exolite merch on, and that'll be fun. Okay, so what?
Nice little gifts for Christmas.
Perfect for Christmas, actually. Yes. So if you guys want to head over there, the link is there, and you guys can just snoop around. I'm really working on putting up new merchandise, and so there's going to be a lot to look at. I think there's 2 pages worth of stuff right now, I believe. Okay. Josh is our moderator for a little while because moderator Maya is at her job where she gets paid. So, in something other than just love.
Don't we get paid for this?
Yeah, we get paid in love, Rob. I love you.
Thank you.
Jeremy says he gets paid in technical difficulties. I love you, Jeremy. I love you guys. All right. So let me ask you, Rob.
Yep.
What have you been enjoying the 31 days of Halloween?
I think it's been brilliant. I think it's been really good. I thought it was crazy when you suggested doing it, but I think it's gone really, really well.
Do you? And by the way, my Josh Johnson says he doesn't get paid enough. You get a lot of love, my friend. A lot. So what has been your favorite part so far? A podcast, a video, a topic? Is there something that you've liked particularly well?
All your videos have been good, but the highlight for me must be the podcast the other night with Madison. Well, that was brilliant.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah.
I liked having her on.
The only problem was she was a little bit too good.
Don't worry. She is actually talking about wanting to maybe do the Halloween, the history of Halloween one with us. I talked to her this morning. She's interested in that. So we'll see about that.
I liked the one we did was about the horror movie Killers. I thought it was good.
I like that one too. My favorite, of course, as you guys all know, is that Oh, Mad Meerkat says he heard from Teespring and he's due to receive his shirt on his birthday. Oh, well, that's nice. I mean, I don't want to sound like a jerk or anything, but happy birthday. My favorite was the Hound of the Baskervilles reading. I love it. And you have a connection there, right, Rob?
To the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yes. You left a comment and said that you drive by there.
Oh, the Bodmin Moor, yeah. Sorry, over Dartmoor, yeah. Yeah, I have to, when I go and pick my daughters up or bring them back here, I have to drive over the moor. And actually, you've got a flood warning thing before. We're having like a little mini hurricane thing at the moment, and the weather is really, really bad.
Wait, you're having a hurricane?
We're having sort of the after effects of it.
Oh.
But driving over the moor tonight was really, really bad with the weather.
Oh.
Really misty and cold and wet. Perfect night for the Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yes. If you guys haven't listened to the Hound of the Baskervilles, please go listen. The book is, I love it. Diabolical Witness says that his shirt shipped 2 days ago. Yay! Tell me how you like them. I want to see that more because, as Jory would tease me right now, that I have 2 favorite books, and it makes me sound very nerdy. The Hound of the Baskervilles. By the way, Mad Meerkat, I am listening to that vampire, the Sherlock Holmes vampire story, and I am loving it. The Hound of the Baskervilles and A Tale of Two Cities are my favorite books. Sounds super, super nerdy, but it's actually scary, I thought, The Hound of the Baskervilles. So, and I have my children read those books because I'm their mom.
What was that bedtime reading when they were small?
Yeah, let's scare you.
Take this book to bed with you and read it while you're going off to sleep. Scare the living shit out of you. Sweet dreams.
Well, yeah, isn't that what most parents do? I would have loved to grow up with the Munsters as my family.
Yeah, my 2 daughters are in the bedroom watching Hellraiser.
Oh, are they? You're such a good dad.
Yeah. And then they're going to watch Night of the Living Dead.
Well, I told Josh that he needs to be watching all of the Halloween movies, all of them. You also liked the vampire story I did.
Yeah, very much. You're very, very clever, which you know.
Thank you.
How are you finding it?
I am loving this, and now it's been a lot of work, and because if you guys don't know, this is 3 months of content in 1 month. So yes, by the way, Mad Meerkat got the "Get 'em While They're Cold" shirt, which makes me love him. So 3 months of content in 1 month was maybe more than I thought it was going to be. But I've enjoyed it so much. And I like to do the research. I like, the writing. So I've really been having a lot of fun with it. So I'm glad that I decided to do this and you have helped by doing several videos. So
yeah, it's been good.
I really like that.
Research as well.
You liked what?
I like doing the research as well. It's interesting and it's amazing the stuff you think you know, how much more stuff you find out when you're actually researching something.
Yeah. That's my favorite part, is thinking you know something inside and out, and then you go research it, and you're like, wow, I really didn't know that. And one of the ghost stories I'm going to tell tonight is like that I didn't. It's very interesting. It's got a very interesting twist to it. So I think it's going to be a very good podcast. But that vampires story that I wrote, I'm in Dallas with my husband right now, and we were going to go out to dinner, and he ran into the shower, and I had the idea come to my head. The idea started with I knew who the vampire in the coffin was going to be. I knew what the weapon was going to be, but the rest of the story just wrote itself, which I like. If I have to push a story to write it, I won't do it. I put it in I have a file where I put stories that I just can't finish them. They're just not writing themselves. And then I go through that every once in a while, and I'll go, oh, I got it. I got the story for that. And even if I don't, I feel like I do, and then it'll write itself. So it's fun for me because I get to hear the story as it's being written, because it feels like, and this is going to make me sound super crazy, it feels like it's writing itself. Yeah. I'm not in control of where it goes. And sometimes I even have to go back. It's really funny because I always want to leave clues, little Easter eggs throughout the story. And you guys might not know this, but every single story I write has some bit of truth in it. So if I'm writing about a city, let's say, it'll be a real city sometimes. Or if there's if somebody dies, it'll be a real person's name that died in a similar way. I always put little Easter eggs. I use the names of people I know in stories. Sometimes I use those as the people who might not make it to the end. But there's always some bit of truth and connection to my actual life in the stories. So when you guys are listening to them, now you get to go figure out what that is. Like, did she just kill off her high school best friend? I don't know. Did I? So then when I do dates, like if I say January 7th, 1920, Wednesday, January 7th, 1920, I will make sure that is actually the day of the week. It actually was a Wednesday. So if you guys want to test me on that, I always make sure that it is the right day of the week. And I don't know why, but it's just fun for me to do the little Easter eggs in case people want to look it up. Sometimes I write stories that people think are real, and they'll comment to me and think they're real, and I think that is the best compliment. And I never know what to write back to them because I just don't want to go like, sorry, that was fake. Thanks for thinking it was real, though. I always feel bad, like I tricked them. But I mean, that kind of is half the trick, right? Mad Meerkat wants to know if you're going to do something about Satanic Santa. Can I tell you, Mad Meerkat, that I always do a bad Santa story. We used to, when I lived in Arizona, we used to do huge Halloween sets. And we would play, one year we played Enter Sandman, strangely enough, because that's where my name comes from, in case you didn't know. We played Enter Sandman. We made an entire children's bedroom. My husband made this huge toy box. Jory's friends came over, and they dressed as toys, hanging out of the toy box. We had a bed, a child in the bed, and I was dressed as a doll with a crack on my face and bleeding eyes. And yes.
With cracks on your face or crack on your face?
Cracks. Yeah. No crack.
Just like to clear that up.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And my idea, Steve, was that the next year I wanted to do a whole Santa's workshop set up and have a Santa out there and have like you could like see behind a curtain elves hanging off of a hook and hear elves being like beaten. Have somebody back there and be like, like Rob, no, stop it. And and elves screaming and stuff while Santa was out there being like, oh, ho, ho, ho. And my husband said that he thought somebody in the neighborhood would probably burn our house down if we did that. So I have a strange mind like that. So yes, I will be doing scary Santa stories for during December because they come easily to me, which is sad actually. He is a scary guy. He is a stalker. Can we admit that? He does see you when you're sleeping. He knows what you're doing when you're awake. He knows if you've been bad or good, for goodness sake.
You're just repeating the song here.
It's the fact. Those are the facts that we've been given. I'm just saying.
Oh, dear me.
Don't you think that's creepy?
Well, I've never really thought of it like that, to be honest.
Oh, well, maybe it's just me. Could be just me then.
Because my daughters are expecting Father Christmas to come and bring them gifts, not to come and just be stood there staring at them while they're sleeping. That would probably traumatize them for life if I started telling them stories like that.
If kids listen to the song, they would be traumatized. They have them in kindergarten singing that song on a stage, and you're like, if you just actually listen to those words. And some countries, Germany celebrates Krampus, which is, I think, I want to say the 8th, I don't want to get this wrong. I feel like it's the 18th of December. And Krampus runs around with sticks to beat the bad kids if they've been bad that year. And my personal opinion is I don't know why we start that so late in December. Like, why can't we start that January 1st?
There's an actual film called Krampus.
Is there?
Yeah, it's quite good, actually. It's
really?
Scary. Yeah. Yeah.
Mad Meerkat says it's good to thrash an elf once in a while. See, that's what I'm saying. How do you think he gets them? They don't work for cookies. Come on, people. Well, you work for love, so. Diabolical says I should do a Krampus January 1st shirt. Why not use it all year long? Let's scare the kids into being good. Oh my gosh. Josh is gonna stop he's gonna stop moderating right now and see if he can't be adopted. All right, well, anything else? I can stop talking now, Rob, and you can feel free to talk.
So, can you give us any clues about what's going to be talked about? I mean, obviously we know it's about famous hauntings and ghosts, but are there any you can sort of talk about now, just to whet people's appetite?
Yeah, well, Jory's going to be talking about one whose name is hold on a second. La Llorona. And it's a witch who drowns children in rivers. He's going to be talking about the Flying Dutchman. There's another one. I'm going to talk about the Lady in White. We're going to talk about the kinds of stories that you sit around and you talk about around a campfire, that aren't real, but well, the kind where your dad's uncle's best friend's grandfather said that he saw this happen one time. Those kinds of ghosts. So I'm going to talk about the lady in white and how she's seen around, how the world actually has different versions of her.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about something I'd never heard of before, the Bell Witch, which is actually super, super interesting and has a strange connection to Andrew Jackson. So I'm just going to... The Bell Witch.
I've heard of that, but is that the... Yeah, that's... Yeah, it's very...
There was a movie, I think, called after this. Yeah, that was called The Bell Witch.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a couple of documentaries on YouTube about it as well.
Oh, is there?
I think so, yeah.
Ooh. Well, this one is thought to be an actual true story. It's become a legend, but it does have roots. It does have its roots in being a true story. So that's what I found interesting about it, because it started off a very true story and it's become something that is, told around the campfire, told at slumber parties. Those I find those really interesting. We all grew up, well, depending on where you live, we all grew up with the same sort of slumber party stories, and we don't really know where they come from, or and they're all, well, my cousin says that her best friend's brother and his uncle saw this, and then so you think it's true, right? When you're little, but a lot of them are actually based in a real event that happened. And it's like a game of, you call it something else. We call it phone or telephone, but you called it something else. When one person tells a story and then by the time it gets down to the end, it's completely different.
Chinese whispers.
Chinese whiskers. Whispers or whiskers?
Yeah, whispers.
Whispers.
Yeah, people, they play the game. Someone will have like a nursery rhyme or something, and then they'll whisper it to one other person, and then they'll whisper it to someone else, then to someone else, then to someone else, and then you've got the two stories. You've got the original, and this one is that it's been passed down. It's completely nothing like what the original was. Is that
right?
What kind of thing you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that. And Jory just sent me a text and said that he is ready to call in. He said, we're still driving, but you can call me whenever you're ready. So, hey. And Jules Rick is in the chat. He happens to know Jory super well. So are you ready? Are you ready to get your call, Jor? Because I've been seriously chatting Rob's ear off, like usual. He said, "I get." Oh, sorry. Josh said, "I guess." Text Jory. Let me know.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, mate.
Hey, Rob.
How are you doing?
Doing good. Sorry about the delay, everybody. We some good friends of ours just had their baby yesterday, so we just left seeing them and seeing the little baby.
That's very nice.
So I called Mom before the podcast, and I was like, "We got to figure out a way to stall."
Well, babies, they come first.
Yeah, they're really good friends of ours, and we wanted to show support. So we had a very small frame of time to go see them, and we're still driving on the highway home. But I don't want to disappoint the listeners, so I have all my information with me, so I'm good to go.
Okay. So
did you want to ask him something? Did you want to ask Joy something, Rob?
Yeah, I was just going to say, after listening to Tracy and about bringing up children, keep that baby as far away from her as you possibly can. And don't let her tell it any bedtime stories.
He was raised by me. He knows what it's like. The scarier the better, huh, Jor?
That's my philosophy. If I haven't scared one child into crying, I'm not trying hard enough.
Oh dear me.
Well, Rob, thank you so much. You guys, right? I woke Rob up. He was asleep, and he stepped in to help me out here in a pinch. And thank you, Rob.
No problem. Not a problem.
You get paid an extra love today.
Okay, thank you. I'll take it to the bank tomorrow.
Yeah, buy yourself something nice.
Okay, I'll leave you in peace then.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a nice.
Bye.
Have a
Have a good night, Rob.
Bye. Nice one,
Okay.
mate. Cheers. Bye.
All right. So, Jory and I are going to talk about witches. No, ghosts. Ghosts.
Famous ghost stories, Mom.
Famous ghost stories. Stay on track. Stay on track.
Let me hold your hand. We got this.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well,
how are the listeners enjoying that nice laugh, by the way?
You know, it's funny because I can't hear it during the podcast. And I also realize that I miss a lot of the chat because I always go back and re-listen to the podcast afterwards. And I miss a lot of the chat. So if I'm missing something like on Wednesday, Jeremy posted, because I said white people be crazy. Jeremy posted that, he can attest to that hashtag #WitchesGate because I allegedly took some people to the Witches Gate last year at this time and allegedly trespassed, according to the sheriff who called me. And then I got stuck on the train track and I almost died. And then I proceeded to get stuck trying to get through a fence. It was not my day. So he can attest that white people be crazy. And I missed that comment or I would have brought it up.
Yeah, I seem to miss Madison taking a jab at me over me calling Rob an idiot.
Can we not bring it up again? Jesus, help me, please.
I don't appreciate somebody who thinks they know what they're talking about coming on to my show and saying bad things about me.
Well,
she's went against her contract, and I'll be seeing her in court.
Stop it! Stop it!
Stop it! Stop it. Sorry, Tracy, just fighting me snake.
Oh my God. So apparently on the screen there's a tip jar. Is this true, Jeremy? Is there a tip jar?
Yeah.
There's a tip jar and it has I guess if you tip, it has peacock feathers because Rob is scared of peacock feathers. And so we're using the peacock feathers as Rob's little part of that new whatever it is you watch. What's the word I'm looking for, Jeremy? What's the word? Screen. Screen. I don't know.
I just want to say that I was listening back to last week's podcast. Was it last week? Or maybe it was... Yeah, it was last week's podcast. And I was screaming in my head at you, "A few good men."
Do you know what your dad did?
What?
He screamed at me through text. He said, A Few Good Men. You're letting me down.
You were just like, what? You and Rob, what's that movie? What's that movie? And I was like, it's A Few Good Men.
I know.
This is why I need to be on the podcast so I can get the pop culture references for you and the viewers.
I know. He sent me a text and he goes, it's A Few Good Men. Tom Cruise, Demi Moore. You're letting me down.
It's Tom Cruise, Jack Nicholson. You can't handle the truth.
Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon.
Oh my gosh. I know. I heard about it. Believe me. I'm sorry about that. Sorry to put you through that, Jory. I'm so sorry.
I was listening to it at work, and I'm like, this podcast is already over, and I want to call her and wake her up and be like, A Few Good Men, Mom.
Oh, my gosh. All right. You know, I don't know what happened. I was drawing a blank on everything that night.
Well, it was an exciting night. The ghost hunt was going on. And
Yes.
you guys were doing your thing for famous scary movie villains, or I think that
Killers.
was the topic. Killers.
Famous, yeah.
So there was a lot going on.
Yeah, there was. There was a lot that night.
By the way, and I know Brian can attest with. Oh, by the way, Brian, I did look at all the stuff that you sent me. I don't want you to think I'm ignoring you. It's been a very crazy week, as Mom can attest to. But
yes,
I have looked at everything, and so I will be getting back to you.
I told him that we had a behind-the-scenes, very crazy family thing going on this week, and that we have looked at it.
Yeah, very crazy exit light family going ons that. Anyways, but the footage that we caught, the evidence that we caught, is going to be awesome. So once Brian and his excellent editing services are done, hopefully we'll be getting that out, and you guys will see what we went through. And I'm pretty excited about it.
Well, I am too. And I was going to ask you in private, but I'll ask you in front of everybody. Do you think that we can do an interview with Brian on Wednesday and talk about what you guys went through and all the equipment you used and that kind of stuff? I don't want to give away anything.
I will leave that up to Brian, but I'm fine with interviewing him.
Yeah, Brian says he's all for it.
Oh, okay. Well then, yeah, that's fine.
Awesome. So we can put that up for one of the 31 days of Halloween.
Do you want to try and aim that around to when he gets the video out, or do you just want to do it next Wednesday no matter what?
Well, I was thinking, this is so weird. Can we talk about this later?
Yeah, you're right. We should probably get on track.
We're having a production meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's actually talk about what these people came for.
Yeah. Diabolical when it says that'll be 2 days tops. So it'll come out afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to go with your ghost first, or do you want me to?
I can go first. Just give me a second here while I get everything ready.
All right. I can hear my feedback.
Yeah, sorry. I have no headset equipment with me. I'm purely on speakerphone. We're on the major highway leading home right now from the hospital, so.
That's fine.
Okay, let me see here. All right, so I'm going to go with this one first, and you'll have to bear with me. My Spanish sucks. But I will try to pronounce her ghostly name to the best of my abilities. All right, so we're going to start with La Llorona.
Yes. Da 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 da. La Llorona. Jory asked me not to do that during the podcast, so.
Yeah, I really asked her not to do that, and I apologize for everybody who had to sit through that. Okay,
I love you.
So, starting with the legend of La Llorona. The Mexican legend goes... Okay, that's enough.
Sorry.
The Mexican legend goes that in a rural village of Mexico, there lived a young woman named Maria. Maria came from a poor family, but was known around her village for her beauty. One day, an extremely wealthy nobleman traveled through her village, but stopped in his tracks when he saw Maria. Maria was charmed by him, and he was charmed by her beauty. So when he proposed to her, she immediately accepted. Maria's family were thrilled that she was marrying into a wealthy family, but the nobleman's father was extremely disappointed he was marrying into poverty. Maria and her new husband built a house in the village to be away from his disapproving father. Eventually, Maria gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. But her husband was always traveling and stopped spending time with his family. When he came home, he only paid attention to the children, and Maria knew her husband was falling out of love with her. One day, he left and never returned. Years later, as Maria and her twins were walking by a river, she saw a familiar carriage with a younger, beautiful woman next to her husband. Maria was so angry and confused that, without thinking, she picked up her two children and threw them into the river, drowning them. Only after she saw their bodies floating in the river did she realize what she had done, and then she jumped into the river hoping to die with her children. Now she spends eternity looking for her children around that river. It is said that if you hear her crying, you are to run the opposite way. If you hear her cries, they could bring misfortune or even death. Also, if you are a child, be extra careful because La Llorona is attracted to children, thinking they are hers. Since she thinks children are hers, she tries to drown them. Children should not walk alone around this river, just in case. Many parents in Mexico use this story to scare their children from staying out too late. At the gates of heaven, she was challenged over the whereabouts of her children, and not permitted to enter the afterlife until she was found, or until she has found them. I'm sorry. La Llorona is forced to wander the earth for all eternity, searching in vain for her drowned offspring. She constantly weeps, hence her name, La Llorona. She is caught between the living world and the spirit world. In some versions of the tale, La Llorona kidnaps wandering children who resemble her missing children, asks them for forgiveness, then kills them to take the place of her own. People who claim to have seen her say she appears at night or in the late evening by rivers or lakes. Some believe those who hear the wails of La Llorona are marked for death, but those who escape in time are not. As in the Gaelic Banshee legend, she is said to cry, Ios mios, which is, "Oh my children."
Oh.
I was thinking that this version of, or the La Llorona legend kind of fits the Banshee legend, the Irish folklore legend, where if you hear her cries, then you're marked for doom or you're cursed or something, you know?
Oh.
Which makes it another weird thing that two different cultures from two different parts of the world virtually have the same ghost story.
See, that's fascinating to me. Yeah, that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Well, your brother wants to know who gets so mad that they drown their own children.
Well, I would like to say that no mother would ever cross that line.
Well,
but there are women who, well, not women, just parents who do have mental illnesses. And I mean, we've seen it. I've seen it in the news. There was actually a mother here a couple Christmases ago who stabbed her children in the town I lived in.
really?
Yeah. I think she killed one, but the other one lived. And it was
Oh
on
my
Christmas
gosh.
Day. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So you would like to think that no parent could ever bring harm to their children, but it happens.
Josh wants me to say to you, geez, it was just a joke.
Well, you asked a question, I answered it.
Yeah, there you go.
Why don't you go back to the zoo, you adopted sloth?
Oh my gosh, help me. So, La Llorona means the weeper. Is that right?
Yeah. The weeping woman.
The weeping woman.
The weeping woman.
Okay, I am going to do The White Lady, or the Lady in White. And I have a lot of information. Here we go. The White Lady is a type of female ghost dressed in all white, reportedly seen in rural areas, and is associated with some local legend of tragedy. While the White Lady legends are found in many countries around the world, they are most prominent in parts of the United States, Ireland, and Great Britain. There you go, Rob, if you're still awake. Common to many of these legends is the theme of a loss of a daughter or a husband and a sense of purity before death, as opposed to the Lady in Red ghost, which I have never heard of. But I'm going to have to look into that. In popular medieval legend, a white lady is fabled to appear by day as well as by night in a house in which a family member is soon to die. According to the Nuttall Encyclopedia, these spirits were regarded as ghosts of deceased ancestresses. So in Brazil, they have the White Lady, and she is called Dama Branca. And in Brazil, this White Lady is said to be the ghost of a young woman who died during childbirth or some other violent cause. According to the legend, she appears as a pale woman in a long white dress or a sleeping gown, and although she usually is speechless, she will occasionally recount her misfortunes. The origins of the myth are unclear, but according to the Brazilian Folklore Dictionary, they propose that the ghost is related to violent deaths of young white women who were murdered by their fathers or husbands in honor killings. The most frequent reasons for these honor killings were adultery, which could have been actual adultery or just being suspected of adultery, denial of this, the S word. I don't want to get caught in a net here, people. Denying your affection, or abuse, which I don't understand. Like, you killed her because you abused her? I don't. But they describe a young woman in a book that's written about the White Lady as having been starved to death by her husband because he suspected that she was in love with a slave that they had. And then when he decided to feed her, he cut up the slave and fed it to her. Yum! 2 times in 1 week. Gonna talk about that. In Canada, a popular legend claims that the surroundings of the Montmorency Falls near Quebec City, and Victor can correct me if that is not how it's pronounced, are haunted by a white lady, and it is said to be the spirit of a Canadian woman whose fiancé was killed while fighting the British in the Battle of Beauport. The young couple used to meet at the top of these falls, so when he was killed, she dressed in her wedding dress and threw herself off of the falls. A smaller waterfall in the same area is now called Chute de la Dame Blanche. No, Chute de la Dame Blanche. And it is the fall of the White Lady. In the United Kingdom, several tales also suggest that the White Lady could be a victim of murder or suicide who died before she could tell anyone in the location of some hidden treasure. See, they're going to throw treasure into this one. Around the 1800s, the castle in Blenkinsop in Northumberland. You can tell me, Mad Meerkat, if I butchered that. Blenkinsop in Northumberland was occupied by a family. On the night the parents woke to their boy screaming the White Lady, by the time they arrived at his bedside, she had vanished, but the boy reported that the lady had been angry and tried to take him away after he refused to accompany her to find a box of buried gold in the vaults below their home. She would not rest until it was there. The same events took place the following 3 nights. When the child began sleeping with his parents, the White Lady no longer disturbed him, but he never again traveled to the castle alone in fear for her. Go find that gold. You got to teach your kids. Go find that gold, even if it's with a ghost. A second instance of treasure being involved exists in the Welsh tradition near Bridgend, Glamgordon in Wales, and this is called, I'm not even going to try it. All right, I will. Dines Mune Gwyn, the Lady in White.
The Welsh language is a little weird.
Yeah, so I'm butchering it, really butchering it, I feel like.
Yeah.
Let me go look in the chat and see if Victor says you said Quebec properly. Well, that's a bonus because some of these. So I'm going to skip the Welsh name, and it translates, of course, into the Lady in White. She used to appear to a guard who was guarding treasure located in the tower of Ogmore Castle. When a man had the courage to approach her, she rewarded him and told him that she would give him half of the treasure. Well, he got greedy. He took all of the treasure, and it said that her hands then turned to claws. She clawed him, and then the man wasted away and died. The White Lady is also known as the Running Lady of Beeford, East Yorkshire, and resides on Beaver Strait, a stretch of road between, what do you think, Beeford and Brandesburton. Motorists report her standing next to the road. Anecdotal tales tell of a motorcyclist picking up this female hitchhiker on the same stretch of road, and a few miles later, the motorcyclist turns around and notices that his passengers vanished. In one incident, a car crashed into a tree, killing 6 people, and it is rumored that that was because of the White Lady curse. In the United States, the White Lady is said to haunt Durand Eastman Park in Rochester, New York. Also known as the Lady in the Lake, the 19th century White Lady wanders the park area, obsessively looking for the body of her daughter who was slain by her boyfriend, or, depending on the story, a group of hoodlums. Legend has it that the human White Lady either killed herself in grief or died alone or heartbroken. The Lady in White, or the White Lady of Avenel, is the most commonly reported apparition at Avenel, which is in Bedford, Virginia. The apparition is thought to be Mary Frances Burwell, who they called Fran, of the Burwell family in Virginia. The legend has it that she stayed on the front porch waiting for her husband to come home from the Civil War, but he never did. So a lot of people in West Virginia believe in this ghost, and they even have ghost hunters and people who want to go ghost hunting go out and look for her, and there's been several sightings and pictures and whatnot of her. The Union Cemetery in Easton, Connecticut, which was made famous by how did it just go out of my head like that?
What cemetery again?
The Union Cemetery.
Wasn't that the cemetery made famous by oh God.
I know. Come on.
He's the nephew to Ed and Lorraine Warren.
No, it was made famous by Ed and Lorraine Warren. Ed went out there with a van.
Oh, yeah.
And remember he set. Yeah, we talked about it. He set up his camera so that he could catch the photos of the White Lady. Which he said he did. Right. So it is very common to have sightings of the White Lady in this particular cemetery, and it's also where Ed Warren is buried. The Talamato Cemetery in St. Augustine, Florida, has been home to stories of a haunting by the White Lady since the 19th century. That legend states that the ghost is the spirit of a young woman who died suddenly on her way to be married, and she was buried in her wedding dress. And now I grew up in Washington State. Not only have I never heard of this city, I don't even know how to pronounce it. It's called Mukilteo, Washington. Never heard of it.
No, can't say I have either.
No, isn't that weird? There have been many alleged reports of a white lady vanishing as a hitchhiker off of Clearview Drive, or sometimes they will see her in the forest or on a road near a forest. In Madisonville, Louisiana, where I have also been, there is a legend about a woman called the Silk Lady. Her ghost is said to haunt the Palmetto Flats by Highway 22. The story goes back. I wish I had known that because I've been there several times. The story goes back into the mid 1800s. Did I say hungry? The mid 1800s, there was a woman who was riding back from town after seeing her boyfriend. She was riding down an old logging trail when a snake spooked her horse. She fell, she hit her head, and she died as a result of the injury. Several people have reported seeing her as the woman dressed in a wispy, silky dress, and that her feet don't touch the ground. When she sees someone, she's apparently supposed to cackle like a banshee. In Altoona, Pennsylvania, there's a woman known as the White Lady of Wapsie. Her ghost is said to haunt Wapsanonoc. Who named these places? Well, Native Americans, and I hope they don't expect me to pronounce it correctly. And Buckhorn Mountain in the western part of Altoona. It is said that she and her husband both died in a crash. Then in a place that's called the Devil's Elbow, and they tumbled down the side of a mountain. According to the legend, she is seen looking for her husband on foggy nights on that mountain and has been picked up as a hitchhiker. Or her reflection has been seen in the rearview mirror several times, well, lots of times. In Yermo, California, at the Calico Ghost Town, there's said to have been a white lady that roamed the outskirts of town, and she had lost a child. In Fremont, California, there's a white lady called the White Witch. Ghost sightings in Niles Canyon. A woman named Lowry was one of the first people in the area killed in an automobile accident, and people claim to see her at the cemetery in the area. And along with seeing her, they report that there are strange lights surrounding her. Local legend says that you can see her walking on the ridge between the Niles Hollywood style sign on the canyon. In Hattiesburg, Mississippi, where we have some friends who live, a woman in white is connected with the history of a burnt bridge road. In the 1970s, a woman was killed in a car accident while crossing a wooden bridge over a small gully. The resulting fire destroyed the bridge, which was later rebuilt in concrete, and then they renamed the bridge. The charred and decaying remains of the original bridge are actually still there. In Dallas, where I am right now, at White Lake Park, it is reported that a ghost of a 20-year-old-ish girl known as the Lady of White Rock Lake is described as wearing a water-soaked 1930s style evening dress. She usually appears at night along the roadside of East Lothar Drive. Let's go there, JD. Witnesses claim the phantom asks to be taken to her home on Gaston Avenue in Dallas, and then she disappears in the car, leaving behind water on the seat. The legend claims that the woman to be a drowned victim from a boating accident in the 1930s, and reports of this ghost started in a Dallas newspaper in the 1960s, and they're still being reported to this day. So it's interesting to me that there's so many different versions of the White Lady through. You could. It's all over the world. I only took certain parts of the world. It's almost exclusive that every part of the world has some version of a White Lady.
Yeah, it's when you like sit down and like I have a ton of ghost books, or even if you just watch like a random Travel Channel ghost show, I don't think you can go through anything without hearing, oh, the White Lady of Brandon Hall, or so there's always a woman in white story for a saloon or for an inn or a castle or something or other.
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those things that interests me because it's different centuries, completely different places on the planet. They all came up with a very similar story. So, do you want to tell us about another ghost?
Yes. This is not so much a individual ghost as it is a little something more nautical. So we are going to talk about the legend of the Flying Dutchman. And I'm not talking about the SpongeBob Flying Dutchman. Among nautical myths and legends.
That's funny because that's what I said to you. Is this the SpongeBob?
Yeah.
Diabolical Witness says that Ed Ward is buried in Stepney, Connecticut, USA. Is it at the Union Cemetery? Because we did a whole story on the Warrens, and our research said that it was at the Union Cemetery, which would be in Connecticut because I believe that's where they lived, right?
Right.
Anyway, yeah, SpongeBob. I literally, I don't want to admit this. I thought when you said I'm going to do the Flying Dutchman, I was like, from SpongeBob, because I didn't realize that there was an actual Flying Dutchman ghost story.
I don't understand. You've never heard of the Flying Dutchman.
I never have. I don't know. The only Dutchman story I ever heard about was the gold mine in
the Lost Dutchman
Arizona.
Mine.
Yeah, the Lost Dutchman mine.
Yeah, that's pretty famous too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you about the seafaring Flying Dutchman.
Please do.
Among nautical myths and legends, few are as famous as the Flying Dutchman. Many have claimed to see the ghostly vessel of Captain Hendrik van der Decken, the Dutchman, since it sank in 1641. It is because of his brash attitude in the face of God's stormy wrath that Captain van der Decken and his crew are cursed to sail the high seas until doomsday. Captain van der Decken had made the perilous journey from Holland to the Far East Indies in order to purchase lucrative goods like spices, silks, and dyes. There had been close calls, of course, but they eventually arrived. After purchasing as much as the hold could hold, say that 3 times fast, and having made the necessary repairs to the ship, Captain van der Decken set out for Amsterdam. As his ship rounded the coast of Africa, Captain van der Decken thought of how convenient it would be if his employers, the Dutch East India Company, made a settlement near the Cape of Good Hope in South Africa to serve as a respite from turbulent waters. The captain was deep in thought as his man-of-war ship began to round the Cape. Suddenly, a terrible gale sprung up, threatening to capsize the ship and drown all aboard. The sailors urged their captain to turn around, but Captain van der Decken refused. Some say he was mad, others say he was drunk. But for whatever reason, the captain ordered his crew to press on. He lit his pipe and smoked as huge waves crashed against the ship. The winds tore at the sails and water spilled down into the hole. Yet the captain held his course, challenging the wrath of God Almighty by swearing a blasphemous oath. Pushed to their limit, the crew mutinied. Without hesitation, Captain Vanderdecken killed the rebel leader and threw his body into the turning seas. The moment the rebel's body hit the water, the vessel spoke to the captain, asking him if he did not mean to go into the bay that night. Vanderdecken replied, "May I be eternally damned if I do, though I should beat about here till the day of judgment." At that, the voice spoke again, saying, "As a result of your actions, you are condemned to sail the oceans for eternity with a ghostly crew of dead men, bringing death to all who sight your spectral ship, and to never make port or know a moment's peace. Furthermore, gall shall be your drink, and red-hot iron your meat." At this, Captain Vanderdecken did not, I'm going to try and say this, quaver for an instant. Instead, he merely cried, "Amen to that." So apparently he didn't mind that too much. Hold on 1 second here.
What are you doing?
I was getting dinner. All right,
Okay.
a little bit of background noise, but here we go. Since then, Captain Vanderdecken has been given the moniker the Flying Dutchman, sailing his ghost ship the world over. Sailors claim the Dutchman has led ships astray, causing them to crash on hidden rocks or reefs. They say that if you look into a fierce storm brewing off the Cape of Good Hope, you will see the captain and his skeletal crew. But be aware, legend has it that whoever catches sight of the Dutchman will certainly meet a gruesome death there. The legend of the Flying Dutchman first gained widespread popularity with Wagner's 1843 opera, The Flying Dutchman. Yet the reason the legend has endured so long has been the subject of so many retellings, seen in or inspiring not only, why is my phone going crazy? Okay, not only Wagner's opera, but also The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Pirates of the Caribbean, a SpongeBob SquarePants character, a Scooby-Doo episode, and more.
Oh, yeah. I think I remember the Scooby-Doo episode.
Yeah, is because there have been so many supposed sightings of the ghost ship. One of the most famous encounters was made on July 11th, 1881, by Prince George of Wales, future King George V, and his brother Prince Albert Victor of Wales. At the time, they were sailing off the coast of Australia. Prince George's log records. July 11th at 4 a.m., the Flying Dutchman crossed our bows. A strange red light as of a phantom ship all aglow, in the midst of which light the masts, spars, and sails of a brig 200 yards distant stood out in strong relief as she came. I'm sorry, my phone keeps freaking out. As she came up on the port bow, where also the officer of the watch from the bridge clearly saw her, as did the quarterdeck midshipman, who was sent forward at once to the forecastle. But on arriving there was no vestige or any sign whatever of any material ship was to be seen, either near or right away to the horizon. The night being clear and the sea calm, 13 persons altogether saw her at 10:45 a.m. The ordinary seaman who had this morning reported the Flying Dutchman fell from the foretopmast cross trees on the top gallant forecastle and was smashed to atoms.
Oh.
Today, scientists insist that the Dutchman's ship is nothing more than a mirage, a refraction of light off of the ocean's waters.
So scientists admit that you can see it, though.
I know, right? Oh, it's just a mirage. Okay, but we're still seeing a ghostly apparition.
Yeah.
So you're admitting it's real, whether it's actually paranormal or not.
That's weird.
But then how do sailors for hundreds of years see the same image?
Right. And they all
did the
perceive
future
this
King of
reflection the
England
same.
see it? Yeah, the future King of England, who monarchs are very well educated people. he saw this and was like, "Oh yeah, that's the Flying Dutchman."
Yeah, and like I said, they all perceive it the same. Some they don't.
Yeah.
You know how famous, like pieces of toast are. Look, this is Jesus's face or Mary's face or whatever, and
Right.
it's never like, hey, the guy who did my sheetrock is on my toast.
Right.
They're all perceiving it to be this ship and not something like, oh, I saw this huge, what I thought was a huge land mass or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I
That
like ghostly sea legends too. There's
me
something
too.
more captivating about them than regular hauntings for some reason.
Oh well, Rob and I are going to do a ghostly sea legend podcast.
Oh, and I already took the Dutchman from you? Oh.
I know.
Whoops.
Sorry
I'll
reuse it. I'll just send me your information. I'll reuse it.
Well, there's a ton of stuff you can read. I just read one of probably thousands of articles. So
I love that. Well, I'm petrified of the ocean.
Me too.
So that just makes it like extra petrifying. To be out on the ocean and then see this ghost ship. No, thank you.
Yeah, especially when it's the banshee of the ocean. Like you see this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I just saw a ghost ship, and now I'm gonna die.
Ah, shit. Gotta turn around and go home real quick. Nope, buddy, you're not making it. But then again, the King of England saw it and he did live.
So I got to tell you something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting a lot of weird interference on your end.
You are?
And then it sounded like a weird little girl's high-pitched voice tried to say something.
Really?
I don't know if it's because I'm not home, but I don't use the internet anyways on my internet.
Yeah.
So it was really weird.
Hey, Brian, did you hear that by any chance? Did anybody else hear that?
More interference from you.
Jeremy, did you hear it? Well, maybe we can listen back. Brian said that he heard it too, Jory.
Okay.
Well, all right. Thanks for everything, guys. I'll talk to you later, and I'll leave you with Jory.
Yeah, Kendra heard it too. I looked at
Really?
her, I was like, what was that? Yeah.
No. Oh. Okay. Well,
All right.
awesome.
Little special treat for the listeners there.
Yeah. So glad.
Hey, would you like to tell me your next ghost story, Mom?
No. I just want to go home.
You are home.
I'm not. I'm in Dallas. I'm in a hotel.
Oh, well. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, here we go. This is the Bell Witch. Have you ever heard of the Bell Witch, Jory?
Yeah, I was listening to you talk to Rob about it earlier. First, there was a movie made about it. It was called An American Haunting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it starred Kiefer Sutherland's dad, Donald Sutherland.
Ooh, I like him.
And then, yes, I am well aware of the Bell Witch haunting. I have come across it numerous times.
The witch or the story?
Well, I've got enough witches in my life that I don't need to deal with the Bell Witch. But as far as the story goes,
Excuse
I've come
me.
across the story a lot.
Are you sitting next to your wife and talking to your mother right now?
I didn't. Are you implying that you two are witches? Because I didn't say that.
Oh, well, what are the witches in your life?
Well, that's for another podcast.
Okay.
But
Kendra.
there's a lot of different theories on the Bell Witch haunting.
Oh yeah, like the the Ed and Lorraine Warren story that happened in England, in Britain.
Yeah, the Perrons, or
not the Perrons.
Yeah, they did
The Conjuring 2
about them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they said happened with her too. It's so stupid.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different theories about what the Bell Witch haunting is, but you can actually go to the Bell Witch cave that's near the property, and that's supposedly haunted too.
Okay then, so let's move on to another ghost.
Well, no, you can tell your story. Like, these people don't know the backstory about it.
What's your next ghost story, so I can talk about that right now?
I was just, you asked me if I heard about it. I told you yes, and this is what I've heard. I didn't say, oh, it started at this time. I didn't do your whole story. I just told you what I've heard. I didn't tell you how it started, who the people in the story were, why.
You're salty today.
My stomach hurts really bad. I apologize, everybody.
Okay.
I'm still waiting on my Exit Light merchandise, which you can get at Teespring. Please do so.
Nice. There you go. This is gonna be Jory's inheritance.
Yeah, I want to be rich when my mom passes away. So the more shirts you buy, the better off I am.
Please, for Jory's sake.
Please, for my sake. I just want to be wealthy and get into the Club 33 at Disneyland. That's how I want.
Oh my gosh. So you guys, come on. Did that not tug at your heartstrings? I mean, seriously. I mean, I've never heard anything so sad before.
My heart is breaking.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the Bell Witch.
Yes, please. Tell me all about her.
I will.
Okay.
The Bell Witch, or the Bell Witch haunting, is a legend from Southern American folklore.
Southern American,
and it is centered on the 19th century Bell family, who lived in the northwest Robertson County of Tennessee. John Bell Sr. made his living as a farmer. He lived with his family along the Red River, in an area currently near the town of Adams. According to the legend, from 1817 to 1821, his family and the local area came under attack by a mostly invisible entity that was able to speak to them. This entity was able to have an effect on the physical environment around them and also to shapeshift. Some accounts record that the spirit also seems to have been able to be clairvoyant and capable of crossing long distances with superhuman speed and or being in two places at one time. So while not a fundamental element of the original recorded legend, the Bell Witch Cave, exists, in the 20th century, it became a source of continued interest and belief and generation of lore. Although there is a record that exists because, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Contemporary artists' interpretations, such as films and music, because there's actually a song called the Bell Witch, have expanded on the reach of the legend. So it's one of those telephone games things I was talking to Rob. It starts out as one thing, and then by the time you get to the end, it's a completely different thing. But the actual story says that the poltergeist name was Kate. the entity claimed at one point that her name was Old Kate Batts Witch, and continued to respond favorably when the family and paranormal investigators and whatever call her Kate, Old Kate Batts Witch. The physical activity centered on the Bells' youngest daughter, Betsy, and her father, and Kate expressed particular displeasure when Betsy became engaged to a local farmer whose name was Joshua Gardner. The haunting began sometime around 1817 when John Bell witnessed the apparition of a strange creature resembling a dog. Hey, it was probably a chupacabra. Bell shot at the animal and it disappeared. John's son, whose name was Drew, approached an unknown bird perched on a fence one day, and that bird flew off and was of extraordinary size. So they think that this is a shape-shifting witch. The daughter, Betsy, observed a girl in a green dress swinging from a limb of an oak tree. Dean, a slave of the Bell family, reported being followed by a large black dog on evenings when he would go to visit his wife. It's a chupacabra. The end. Activity moved to the Bell household finally, not just animals outside, with knocking heard along the doors and the walls. The family heard these sounds of gnawing, something chewing on their bedposts. They heard what they thought was dogs fighting, and they would hear that in the house, but they couldn't see anything. They would hear chains scrape along their floor. And around the same time that they started hearing the hauntings in the house, John Bell began experiencing paralysis of his mouth. The phenomenon grew in intensity so badly that sheets would be pulled from beds when the children slept. Soon the entity would start pulling their hair. It would scratch the children. I think I know this entity. And it had a particular emphasis on Betsy, who was also, besides scratched and had her hair pulled, she would be slapped, pinched, and pins would be stuck in her. The Bells turned to a family friend whose name was James Johnson for help. After retiring for the evening at the Bell home, James came to spend the night. Johnson was awakened that night by some of the same phenomenon that the family had said that they had been experiencing. That morning, he told John Bell that what he was experiencing was a spirit, just like in the Bible. Soon, word of the haunting spread, and people came from miles and miles and miles away, great distances, to come experience this. Why would you do that? I don't know. The apparition started speaking out loud, and was asked, "Who are you and what do you want?" And the voice would sound like a feeble woman, and she would answer and say, "I am a spirit. I was once very happy, but I have been disturbed." The spirit offered different explanations of why it appeared. It tried to tie its origin to the disturbance of the Native American burial grounds located on the property. They had those mounds. Have you ever heard about the burial mounds, Jory?
Yes, I have.
Okay, well, on that property, there were several of the burial mounds, and they would get rid of them so they could farm the land. And it sent Drew Bell and Bennett Porter once, supposedly, this ghost told them where there was treasure buried on the farm, but there actually wasn't. When she started having full conversations with people, the spirit would repeat word for word 2 sermons given 13 miles apart at different churches at the same time. The entity was well acquainted with biblical texts, which would suggest demonic activity, and appeared to enjoy religious arguments. This is so bizarre. As other amusement, the witch shared gossip about activities in other people's houses, and would appear to leave for some time, and then she would come back with this information about what was happening in someone else's house. John Johnston was the son of James, and so he devised a test to test this witch ghost. Something that nobody had actually thought of before this was to give it some sort of a test to see if it really did know things that were not well known about the family. So they started asking this entity what his step grandmother, who happened to be Dutch but lived in North Carolina, would say to the slaves if she thought they did something wrong. And the ghost replied in his grandmother's accent, "Hut, tut, what has happened now?" In another account, an Englishman stopped by to visit and offered to investigate this ghost. And he had been talking about his family overseas. The ghost suddenly began to mimic his English parents in what sounded to be exactly their voices. In the early morning, the ghost woke him up to the voices of his parents, worried. And, they were supposedly like worried that something was going to happen to him or whatever. And he got up and became very afraid that something was going to happen to him. The Englishman quickly left that morning, I can imagine. And he later wrote to the Bell family that the entity had visited his family in England as well and mimicked his voice to them. And he apologized to them for having thought that they were faking it and being skeptic. At times, this spirit displayed kindness as well, especially towards Lucy, who is John Bell's wife, who John Bell called the most perfect woman who ever walked the earth. The ghost would give Lucy fresh fruit and sing hymns to her, and would show John Bell a certain measure of respect because he was married to her. Although she did refer to John Bell Sr. as Old Jack for some reason, and she claimed that she intended to kill him and signaled that she would do this through curses. She would give him afflictions, so, illnesses and disease. The story comes to a head when the Bell patriarch was being poisoned by the ghost, they believed. Afterward, the ghost interrupted the mourners by singing drinking songs during his funeral. In 1821, a result of the ghost's agreement with Betsy Bell to call off her engagement with Joshua Gardner, the entity told the family that she was going to leave, but then returned 7 years later in 1827. The ghost returned to Lucy and her sons Richard and Joel with some of the same activity that had been happening before, the pulling the hair, slapping and whatnot. They chose not to encourage it, and the ghost left again. Several accounts say that during his career in the military, Andrew Jackson was really caught up in this story of hearing about this ghost. So you have Andrew Jackson, who would go on to be the 7th president of the United States, involved in this story, which is really weird. And that's going to come up later. I'm going to tell you his his written experience with the Bell Witch. Let's see. After the witch had threatened to kill John Bell Jr., he ended up being murdered in North Carolina. In the folklore of this, his spirit fell in love with this witch. The account is reminiscent of old vampire folklore, that vampires could basically suck the life out of you. In the manuscript which Richard Williams Bell wrote about this spirit, he wrote this: whether it was witchery, such as afflicted people in past centuries and the darker ages, whether some gifted fiend of a hellish nature practicing sorcery for selfish enjoyment, or some more modern science akin to that of being hypnotized, he called it mesmerism, or some hobgoblin native to the wilds of the country, or a disembodied soul shut out from heaven, or an evil spirit like those that Paul drove out of the man into the swine, setting them mad, or a demon let loose from hell, I am unable to decide, nor has anyone yet divined its nature or cause for appearing, and I trust this description of the monster in all forms and shapes and of many tongues will lead experts one day who will come with a wiser generation to a correct conclusion and a satisfactory explanation. He was the one who wrote down about all the incidences and everything that happened. So there actually is written documentation of what had happened. So I'm going to tell you about Andrew Jackson's version of what he saw when he went there. Are you ready? Jory, are you there?
I'm here.
Are you eating?
No.
Do you have anything you want to say so far?
The only thing I want to say is that if this is all 100% true, this is probably the most unique haunting in the history of ever.
Right?
Because of the interactions that this ghost had with people. You don't see anything really before or since this kind of interaction between the other world and people who are alive.
Right.
So
yeah, I think it's actually fascinating.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that I really want to go so bad and see something about this.
Supposedly the area is still haunted to this day, so...
Yeah. Yeah, apparently. So, let's go.
Okay.
They even have a sign, I think. Yeah, they have a sign in this town that's all about the Bell Witch.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's their little tourist trap, because there's a cave. I mentioned earlier. There's a cave on the property where supposedly this is where the entity lived, and
right.
You can go there. You can visit it.
Yeah, right. I did read about the cave too. I wanted to concentrate on the ghost aspect, but yeah, I read that there was a cave that they said that she would. I don't know what a ghost does. Lives in.
Inhabits.
Okay, so what?
Inhabits.
Inhabits. Yes, that's it. Okay, so Andrew Jackson, who would become president of the United States, has an account with this witch, this ghost. So this is how it goes. This is a letter from Thomas L. Yancey, who was an attorney in Clarksville, dated January 1894, and Yancey explained that his grandfather, Whit Fort, was a witness to phenomena at the Bell homestead, and Fort had related that the story of Jackson's visit, which is going to be talked about in his letter, Yancey described that his grandfather's account as quite amusing, which I don't know if amusing is the word I would use. Okay, so what happened was the Bell household was strained of resources from visitors because a lot of people were coming to try and figure out what this was. And Andrew Jackson had heard about it, so he brought, and of course he was interested in it, so as an excuse to go, he brought a wagon load of supplies and all of his men with him. When he got near the Bell homestead, the wagon stopped, and it appeared. I'm gonna actually read it. I'm gonna read the letter the way that they wrote it. Okay, so it's gonna. So I'm gonna start over and read the letter. The Bell household was strained of resources from visitors, and Jackson brought a wagon load of supplies with his men. Nearing the Bell homestead, the wagon stopped and appeared fastened to its position, despite considerable effort by Jackson's men to free it. Jackson exclaimed, "By the Eternal, boys, it is the witch." A metallic voice was heard in the vegetation. "All right, General, let's let the wagon move on. I will see you again tonight." The horses began moving again. Instead of camping out, the party stayed at the Bell home that evening. Among the Jackson party was a witch layer who boasted of his supernatural exploits. Tiring of the bravado, Jackson whispered, "By the Eternals, I do wish the thing would come. I want to see him run." The entity did arrive and taunted the witch layer to shoot her, but the man's gun would not fire. The witch countered, "I'll teach you a lesson," and appeared to beat the man and led him out the door by his nose. Jackson exclaimed, "By the Eternal, boys, I never saw so much fun in all my life. This beats fighting the British." The ghost told Jackson that she would uncover another rascal the next night. That morning, Jackson's men chose to leave for home, as they were apprehensive as to who would be next. So there you go. That was our 7th president's experience with the Bell Ghost, the Bell Witch.
That's it almost kind of feels like a 19th century stage play, the way it was told.
I know, isn't it? And the way he always says, hold on a second. He says, "By the Eternal," before every sentence. "By the Eternal. By the." What does that even? I don't even know what that means. Like, "Oh my gosh," or
yeah,
"I
that's
swear."
19th century. Oh my God.
Yeah. So I think that this particular ghost is pretty cool. That's a cool story.
It's one of my favorite hauntings just because of the interactions that the ghost has with the family over the years. Obviously, the majority of it's not good, but
right.
Having multiple witnesses.
You just cut out, Jor. There you go.
Yeah, I muted it real quick because I was going to cough. Having multiple witnesses having these interactions, first it's fascinating, but second it's really frustrating that in today's age with all the technology that we have, we can't get interactions like that.
Right. And there's so many people that collaborated that this is what they heard.
Yeah, there's not a single person that walked away from that farm saying it was fake.
And I don't know how they would have faked it. I mean, the technology would have, I don't think existed.
Well, the hauntings took place in the early 1800s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for somebody to know 2 different sermons 13 miles apart at the same time, you wouldn't. Not in today's age, or not in that age, you wouldn't.
Right, or go to the Englishman's parents.
Yeah,
in England,
across the ocean of a guy. Go see the parents of a guy you barely met.
Yeah.
All the way in England. Yeah.
Really interesting, I think. Do you have another ghost story?
I do.
Okay.
And I saved this one for last because it's very Halloweeny.
Oh, nice.
So what I'm going to talk about now is the Headless Horseman.
Ooh.
The Headless Horseman has been a hold on, my phone's freaking out again. Okay.
Don't tell me there's a small child talking on my phone.
No, it keeps doing this weird thing where like the screen shifts and I'm not touching it. I'm like, stop it! You're ruining where I'm trying to read.
Stop it!
Stop it! Stop it! Sorry about that, Tracy. I'm fighting me snake.
I hate it when you have to fight your snake.
Anyways.
The most inconvenient times, too.
Oh, I know. I'm on a podcast, Snake. Stop it.
Stop it.
Stop it, pulpit. The Headless Horseman has been a staple of European folklore since at least the Middle Ages. The Headless Horseman is traditionally depicted as a man upon horseback who is missing his head. Depending on the legend...
That's the name Headless Horseman.
I know. Thank God they explained it to me like that.
I was wondering, like, does he have a head, though?
Well, I always wondered, was it a headless man whose body resembled a horse?
Was it a headless horse?
Man?
Dude? Thank you for clarifying it.
Holy crap. Anyways, depending on the legend, the horseman is either carrying his head or is missing his head altogether and is searching for it. Perhaps the most famous myth arises from the short story, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, written in 1820 by Washington Irving.
Well, you would know this. I did a reading from from Sleepy Hollow for the 31 Days of Halloween.
You did?
Yes, I did. Mad Meerkat says you must make a snake T-shirt. I agree. I agree. We should put a snake on there and just say, "Stop it, stop it."
I knew it was going to happen. I think I called it out the day it happened. Like
you did. You said, "I feel us."
I smell a T-shirt.
Yep.
Howdy, folks. This is Rob, the snake handler.
I don't think he sounds like that, though.
But we'll make him sound like that for the T-shirt sales.
Okay.
Because it just doesn't sound right coming up with a British accent. He's got to change it to a Southern accent. I'll wrestle snakes out of your house for free.
Just because I like it.
I get paid in love, but exit light. To wrestle your snakes out of your house.
Let's not make a shirt that says I get paid in love, though. No.
I get paid in love.
Wish I hadn't heard that.
It's for the shirt, Mom.
Oh, okay. That's what the shirt would sound like when you read it.
If you read it, you'd have that like Barry White voice. You know, like,
Got it. Okay.
I'll get paid in love.
Okay.
The Headless Horseman is a fictional character from the short story The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by American author Washington Irving. I didn't realize it was written in 1820. That's old.
Yeah.
The story, from Irving's collection of short stories entitled The Sketchbook of Geoffrey Cran, has worked itself into known American folklore legend through literature and film. The legend of the Headless Horseman begins in Sleepy Hollow, New York, during the American Revolutionary War. Traditional folklore holds that the horseman was a Hessian artilleryman who was killed during the Battle of White Plains in 1776. He was decapitated by an American cannonball.
Oh.
and the shattered remains of his head were left on the battlefield while his comrades hastily carried his body away. Eventually, they buried him in the cemetery of the Old Dutch Church of Sleepy Hollow, from which each Halloween night he rises as a malevolent ghost, furiously seeking his lost head. The Headless Horseman is also a novel by Mayne Reid, first published in monthly serialized form during 1865 and 1866, and subsequently published as a book in 1866. Based on the author's adventures in the United States, The Headless Horseman, or A Strange Tale of Texas, was set in Texas and based on a South Texas folklore. In Irish folklore, the Dullahan is a headless demonic fairy, usually riding a horse and carrying his head under his inner lower thigh, or holding it high to see at great distances. He wields a whip made from a human corpse's spine.
His inner lower thigh. Wouldn't that be between his knees?
Sure. Well, it wouldn't be in between his knees because he's on a horse. So it'd be resting on the horse's back at that point. Maybe it's.
Oh yeah.
Maybe it's like resting by his thigh, like by a rope or something. I don't know. He wields a whip made from a human corpse's spine. When the Dullahan stops riding, a death occurs. The Dullahan calls out a name, at which point the named person immediately dies. In another version, he is the headless driver of a black carriage. A similar figure can be frightened away by wearing a gold object or putting one in his path. Okay. In British folklore, the most prominent British tale of the Headless Horseman concerns a man named Ewan, decapitated in a clan battle at oh boy, the British are going to hate me. At Glen Kinnear, I think that's Kinnear, on the Isle of Mull. The battle denied him any chance to be a chieftain, and both he and his horse are headless in accounts of his haunting of the area. The 14th century poem Gawain and the Green Knight features a headless horseman, the titular character, or the titular giant knight.
What?
Huh?
What did you just say?
The giant tit knight.
Oh my God.
Sign me up for that job.
Oh no, Wes, stop. I'm your mother.
You stopped me. I was just going to keep reading.
Stop it.
You stopped me.
Just go on. Just go on.
After he is beheaded by Gawain, the Green Knight lifts his head up with one hand and rides from the hall, challenging Gawain to meet him again 1 year later. In German folklore, the German legends of the Brothers Grimm recount two German folk tales of a headless horseman being spotted with their own eyes. One is set near Dresden in Saxony. In this tale, a woman from Dresden goes out early one Sunday morning to gather acorns in a forest at a place called Lost Waters. She hears a hunting horn. When she hears it again, she turns around and she sees a headless man in a long gray coat sitting on a gray horse. In another German tale set in Brunswick in Lower Saxony, a headless horseman called the Wild Huntsman blows a horn to warn hunters not to ride the next day because they will meet with an accident. In some German versions of the Headless Horseman, he seeks out the perpetrators of capital crimes. In others, he has a pack of black hounds with tongues of fire.
Oh.
In Indian folklore, I cannot pronounce this name. I'm going to try my hardest, though. And if I have any Indian listeners, I apologize. The Jinjahar is a headless horseman found in the folklore of Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh. Unlike European depictions, this headless horseman is often portrayed as a heroic figure. Folklore states that Jin Jahars are said to be born out of violent and wrongful deaths that occur in protecting innocence. Most stories about the Jin Jahar describe it as a Rajput prince who has lost his head while defending a village or caravan from bandits, but refusing to back down even after being beheaded, while other versions describe it as a Mughal countryman trying to defend its prince. So that is the many different legends of the Headless Horseman. And I've actually known of the Irish version, but I didn't put two and two together.
Really?
Yeah, I've always seen it as something separate, but now that I've read about this and done some of the research, I'm like, I can kind of see where the American version comes from, because the Irish folklore has been around forever.
Right.
So it only makes sense that Americans are like, well, that's ours now, and this is what it is. Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah. Huh, interesting.
Yeah.
I really like that story.
It's one of my favorite stories of all time. Just the scene of the Headless Horseman chasing Ichabod Crane. I remember the first time I read it as a kid, it gave me like the goosebumps. Like, it was scary and it was exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I love the period of time of the Revolutionary War. Like, it's very, as an American, but also as a student of history, it's very like you're seeing the birth of a new nation happening. And so to have like a weird little ghost story to the side, what's happening, I don't know, it's always fascinated me.
Yeah, I like that part.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I have two more, and I'm going to make them a little shorter because I know you like to keep this at a couple of hours.
Okie dokie.
So I'll just quickly do this one because this one is well known. Everybody knows it. The Hitchhiker Ghost.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So here is one version of the Hitchhiker Ghost story, and I didn't get a chance to mute myself. Sorry. I had to sneeze.
That's all right.
Okay, here we go. On a cold and rainy night, a young man is on his way to a party at a local dance hall. And on his way there, he happens to offer a ride to an attractive young woman who agrees to go to the dance with him. Everyone at the party found her to be very charming. And after the dance was over, the young man offered her a ride home as the night quickly turned chilly. She accepted it because it was cold out, and he gave her his coat to wear. He asked for her address, and she gave it to him, and a short time later they pulled into the driveway of the house where the girl said that she lived, and the driver turned to tell her that they had arrived. To his astonishment, she was gone. The passenger seat of the car was empty, although the door had never opened. The girl had simply vanished. Not knowing what else to do, the man went up to the door and knocked. An elderly woman answered the door, and he explained to her what had happened. Right away, she seemed to know exactly what he was talking about. The young girl he had taken to the dance was her daughter, but she had died 10 years before in an auto accident. The horrified young man did not believe her, even though the name of the girl he had taken to the dance and the woman's daughter were the same. In order to convince him, the old woman even told him where to find her grave of the dead girl in the local cemetery. The young man quickly drove there, and following the directions he had been given, found the stone with the girl's name on it. Folded neatly over the top of the marker was the coat that the girl had borrowed to ward off the chill of the night. Wah. In other variations of this scenario, the hitchhiker meets a driver. The hitchhiker learns later that the driver is actually a ghost of a person who died earlier. So, out of curiosity, who was driving the car?
I think Jesus took the wheel in that story, if I'm not mistaken.
That was funny.
It was the Holy Ghost.
You are good. Congratulations. See, everybody, I present you this. I made it. Not all vanishing hitchhiker legends involve ghosts, however. However, one popular variant in Hawaii involves the goddess Pele, traveling the roads incognito and rewarding kind travelers. Other variants include hitchhikers who utter prophecies, typically of pending catastrophes or other evil events, before vanishing. There is a similar story, which is about two travelers sitting next to each other on a train, normally a man and a woman. One of them is reading a book, and the other person asks what the book is about. The first person says that it is about ghosts, and then they have a conversation about ghosts. The second person then asks if the first person believes in ghosts or has ever seen one, to which the first person says that they have never seen or believed in ghosts at all. The second person then says, "This is doubtful." And with that, the second person vanishes. I like that one. Wish I'd thought of it. Damn it.
That's pretty good.
Will you guys notice if I rewrite that story? So that's the Hitchhiker Ghost. And then I'm going to talk to you about the Greenbrier Ghost. Now, I have a whole huge story to tell about the Greenbrier Ghost, but I'm gonna shrink it down, okay?
Can
Is that okay?
Something about your hitchhiker ghost story?
Yes, sir, you may.
So I don't know if you've heard about it, but you remember the earthquake / tsunami incident in Japan back in 2011?
Yeah.
And then it caused the reactor to go haywire. So there are cab drivers in Japan that they drive cab around the area where the tsunami hit, who pick up people and they look wet and cold and lost, and they pick these people up and they tell them, the people tell them where they have to go, so the cab drivers will take them to their destination. And when they arrive, these people are gone.
Oh, and really?
There's a belief growing amongst the Japanese cab drivers that they're picking up the people who passed away in the tsunami.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it's so crazy because in history, it just happened recently. So for this to already become a thing where they're picking up people who are like, there's something off about them, and then they arrive at the destination that they're given and they're gone.
Yeah.
Like that's pretty creepy.
Wow. That is creepy.
Yeah.
The Japanese have some of the very best ghost stories.
I hate Japanese ghost stories because to me, they're the creepiest of the ghost stories.
I think so too. They're the scariest of the ghost stories. They do ghost stories very well.
Yeah.
Okay, the Greenbrier Ghost. All right, so I'm going to shorten this up a little bit so that, Jory can go to bed. So here we go. The Greenbrier Ghost is an Appalachian ghost story, which I particularly love because, I don't know, I have a fondness for Appalachian history. It's so strange, and they're such a unique community that it's really I think just fascinating. But here's the deal. So I'm going to give you the short version. I had 2 versions, so I'm glad I decided I did that. The Greenbrier ghost is the only ghost in American history whose testimony was successfully used to convict her own murderer. So this is a true story. Zona Haster lived in Greenbrier County, West Virginia, in the late 1800s. In 1896, she was married to a drifter who everybody thought was a weirdo. His name was Edward Shue. He went by Edward Shue, but that wasn't his real name. They found out later that he was going by a different name. Edward Shue killed Zona Hester. He had thrown her off of a balcony or stairs. So somebody found her. They went and got her husband from work, Edward from work, and said, "Oh my God, Zona has fallen." And he ran home, and he insisted on holding her head while they called a doctor. They took her to the, mortuary. The coroner did an autopsy on her while the husband stood there mourning and holding her head. Okay. So the doctor couldn't find anything wrong internally, so he put on her death certificate that she died from everlasting faint, which actually means heart attack. But I really like everlasting faint a lot better. Now, Zona had a mother who didn't like this guy, thought he was a POS. And she felt that something was wrong. Well, she goes to bed one night, and for 4 nights in a row, her daughter's ghost appears to her. And she tells her that her husband murdered her. And she tells her how. And she says, "He murdered me by breaking my neck." And her ghost turns her head completely around to show her mother that she had died by him breaking her neck. So by this time, Zona has already been buried. Her daughter, her mother, goes to whoever you go to, and the head of law enforcement, and said, "Listen, I believe that my daughter's death was inaccurately listed on her death certificate. I believe she had a broken neck because her ghost has come to tell me that." And because they lived in the Appalachian Mountains and things like that were credible, they went to the coroner and said, "Hey, listen, is it possible?" That was like drug history. "Hey, listen, is it possible that you could be wrong about this death certificate thing?" And he was like, "Yeah, it's possible. I'm only human." So they dug her body up, and they found that not only was her neck broken, her windpipe was crushed, and her eyes were bulging. Now, keep in mind, the doctor, the coroner, had never gotten to her head and neck because the husband was leaning over her, holding her head the whole time in grief. So they go to court, and they put this guy on trial. Well, the defense attorney it keeps trying to bring up this ghost thing because they really want to make out the mother, Mary Jane, to look like a nut job. Okay. The prosecution has tried to not bring up ex-nay on the Ostgay or Eastay. They don't want to talk about it because they don't want her to look like a nut job either, right? Well, the defense keeps bringing it up. And tell me again how you knew that he broke her neck. Well, my daughter came to me as a ghost, and there was Snickers and, stuff like, Well, it backfired on him because, and this is really funny because in this article it says this strategy backfired because if anyone in history has ever believed in ghosts, it is definitely the West Virginian Hill people from the 1800s. So they sent him to jail, and the ghost was never seen again. And also in this article, which I think is funny, is it says that the state erected a historical marker about Zona and about her ghost, the Greenbrier ghost, as sort of a quote unquote "sorry you got murdered" gift. So there you go. First, probably only case ever in the United States where a ghost's testimony was used in court and convicted a man of murder. They also found out that he had 2 previous wives. One of his wives had accidentally fallen off the roof of a house. He was also on the roof. And then his other wife, this is funny. It's not funny. She was putting large stones into a basket. He was making a chimney. Somehow, one of the stones got accidentally thrown at her head, and she died too. So
I hate it when that happens.
I hate that about stones when they just throw themselves at you.
Yeah, I prefer them rolling. I prefer rolling stones.
I prefer the Rolling Stones. Well, I guess I don't know. It feels the same to me actually when I hear them. So there you go. I like that ghost story.
I've actually heard of that story before. Pretty fascinating. Yeah.
I think it's fascinating too. I really like it.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go there and visit that too. I just think that's funny. Like if anybody ever believed about ghosts, it'd be the West Virginia Hill people in the 1800s.
They probably still believe in ghosts.
Oh yeah, they have still carry on the same traditions. They still live like they used to live, like a lot of them without electricity and running water and everything. It's so fascinating.
Yeah,
they have
used to be a show on Destination America called Hillbilly Blood,
mm-hmm.
and it's about these 2 guys who lived in the Appalachian Mountains, and they would show you how they lived without the basic, I say basic, without the necessities that we use. And like one of the guys' moms wanted hot running water to take baths. So this guy, they lived right next to the river, and he built tubing that went from the river to the house, and then used soda cans to use the sun's light to heat the pipe. And by the time the water got from the river to the house, the water was hot.
You're kidding me. Well, there's a particular a community that was biracially mixed with freed slaves, American Indians,
mm-hmm.
Something else, and they were called something. I want to say like Munchin or
something like that.
And Elvis Presley was from that heritage.
Yeah.
A lot of famous people. Abraham Lincoln was from that heritage. That's where that story that you just said about the water, that's where they got that saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
Anyway, so they just have a wide and varied history, and I just find it so fascinating. They just don't give 2 Fs. They don't.
Nope. They don't care.
They're all about family and their community, and I don't know. I don't know.
They're
And
about the ways
ghosts.
that their families have always lived since they've
Yeah.
settled the mountains.
I think that's also where the blue children lived, was in the Appalachian Mountains. Have you ever heard
Yeah,
about the blue children? Or green?
yeah,
Blue or
yeah.
green?
The ancestral family that their skin turned blue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a weird side effect of incest, but okay.
I don't
How'd
think
we get
there's
there?
ever, I don't think there's ever a good side effect to incest. Just throwing that out there.
Probably not. No. No. Okay. So, do you guys have any questions about any of the ghost stories that we talked about? Anybody? Anybody? Jeremy, you? Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, I just wanted to say that the Headless Horseman was one of my favorite stories too. So much so that there's actually a part in my main story that I'm writing where that kind of whole caricature plays a pretty big part. So I was really excited when
Oh.
Jory was talking about that because I love it a lot too.
Ah. Yeah, that's a good one. That would scare the crap right out of me. Hey, Jory, are you here?
I'm here.
So no one appears to have any questions. So I'm gonna do my wrapping up of this.
Okie dokie.
I'm gonna say that next week is the podcast will be Rob and Jeremy and me, but it's mostly Rob and Jeremy. I will be here, of course, with my shining personality, and they're gonna talk about basically like what's the word I'm looking for? Near-death experiences, and looking at it from a scientific sort of a view, a religious kind of a view, a combination sort of a view, and talking about people's near-death experiences. And that'll be interesting. I've fallen down the rabbit hole of YouTube listening to near-death experiences, and it's so strange because so many of them are very, very similar. And then hopefully next week I'll be doing an interview or a podcast, I suppose, with Jory and Brian, so they can tell us about their ghost hunt, paranormal hunt at the Casa Grande Domes. Did you enjoy that, Jory?
Yeah, we had a lot of fun that night. We got a lot of really good evidence, and we're pretty excited to be able to eventually get that video up and show everybody. I mean, you heard a little bit of what we got in just the small span of time that you were on.
Yeah.
So it was pretty much like that all night.
That's crazy. And you can tell us the story of the couple of groups of people who showed up while you guys were there. That will be fun to talk about during the interview.
Yeah.
And so, as always, for the whole rest of the month of October, every day will be a new video. And I hope you guys like it. And if you do, go ahead and give them thumbs up, because that's how we're suggested to other viewers. And if you like my videos, another way to get suggested for me is YouTube keeps track, analyzes how many times videos are shared. So if you don't mind and you would like to, if you know somebody who's interested and you can share my video, that would be awesome too. And if you're listening to this not during the live podcast, then it says, "Hey, Exit Light, will you ever make live action paranormals with the tech team? That would blow up your channel." Actually, we have something that could be planned for February. So it's a possibility. And that would be exciting. I would love that. if you're watching this and you are not already and you'd like to be, please subscribe. I finally got to a little over 1,400 subscribers, Jory. I remember when I couldn't get past 39. I was stuck on 39 for a long time.
I was just telling my grandma today about how many followers you have, and
Oh, were you?
she's not a very high-tech kind of a person.
Right.
So when I broke it down for her, she was pretty amazed.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
She
nice
was
to know.
like, I would love to listen to your podcast. I just don't have a way of listening. And I'm like, do you have a laptop? No. Oh, God. She uses a flip phone to talk to me. Let's just talk about how ancient she is.
Do they still make flip phones?
Yeah, I don't know. But I can tell you that this phone is old, so she probably still has the same phone for years.
Somebody, when I was calling tech support for something last week, I don't have no idea what it was. They asked me if I had a home phone.
And you laughed at them?
Well, what's really funny is I do have a home phone number. I could plug a phone in, but I don't even know where that is.
Yeah.
Where the thing is. So I was like, well, no. I actually don't know anybody who does have a home phone.
We had a home phone moving into this house, and then when we finally kind of realized we never used it, we got rid of it.
I think that's what we did. When we moved here to Texas from Arizona, I think we just kind of begged the home phone thing.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I like it better that everybody can get a hold of you no matter what you're doing.
Right.
My point being, share the video, and if you would like to be notified when we go live with other podcasts, please click that bell. It's all free. It won't cost you a thing. And I have the information for Patreon if you feel in the deepest crevices of your heart that you would like to support this channel. Please consider doing so through Patreon, or even go to my merchandise shop and pick up something from there. They'd make excellent birthday gifts, also Christmas gifts. And Victor, I need to get your information because I'm going to be sending Victor a t-shirt of his choice because he's a Patreon supporter. And I think that is all. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank you, Jory.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Rob, wherever you are, for giving me a hand in the middle of the night. Thank you, Mad Meerkat, for showing up and staying here during the middle of the night. And thank you, producer Jeremy, for everything that you do. And if you guys ever want to see those peacock feathers go into that cup, all you got to do is push that donate button. It costs $1. It's a tip jar. It's just $1. Don't be afraid. Thank you, Maya. Oh, actually, Maya didn't moderate today. Thank you, Joshua James Johnson, for being my moderator. Appreciate that. I called and woke him up, too. Who said, hey, wake up. I need a moderator. Okay, Victor, thank you. And Mad Meerkat says, another fun evening warning. Thanks to you both. I have another true crime story for you. We'll send it across. Stay safe and see you soon. Awesome. Send it to me. And I will narrate it. And Diabolical Witness says, wake up, Josh. Yeah, because I haven't even seen him on here for a while, so I think it's possible that he fell asleep.
That's what sloths do, though.
Good night. I'll see you hopefully Wednesday. Bye. Say bye, Jor. Bye.
Bye.